What if I told you that before the tragic story of V, before the era of Atom Smasher, and long before the events of Cyberpunk 2077, there was a madman that terrorized Night City? Would you say, "What the hell are you talking about, little Australian man trapped in my iPad?" Or would you say, "I'm intrigued, Mr. Joyce from YouTube, please go on"? If you chose the latter, I'm going to tell you about a character in the Cyberpunk universe that you most likely haven't heard of, or at least know barely anything about. If you've played Cyberpunk 2077, you'll most likely be familiar with the unique humans that Night City has to offer. Whether they're main characters or random one-off side quests, this town is jam-packed with weirdos and freaks. I've played through the game's main storyline a few times and come across weird characters, but it wasn't until a few days ago that I saw an intriguing bit of background lore that laid out an interesting name: the Night City Stalker. Ooh, that's cool. I'm going to Google that, I thought to myself. So I did, but nothing really popped up. Although I did see a few results for Cyberpunk 2020, the tabletop game. As I continued reading, I only saw maybe 3 or 4 Reddit posts talking about this character, so I fell even deeper down the rabbit's hole, scouring forums and wikis until I saw this. In Cyberpunk 2077, you can encounter this cat on your first visit to Victor's clinic. You can also see it a second time as you depart on the final mission. Interacting with the cat will allow you to pet it, and it can also spark dialogue from Misty. She will state that they found the feline in the trash behind the clinic. She will also mention that the cat's name is Mr. Brightman. To many people, this name doesn't ring any alarm bells, but to some Night City residents, there is a chilling story to be remembered. Let's go back in time, around the year 2020. A young man named Joshua Brightman worked in a tech store. To many people, he was simply a nerdy clerk with not much to his name. He would finish his shift, lock up shop, and head out in the city late at night. But he wouldn't indulge in the usual Night City degeneracies like partying, drinking, or doing drugs, no. He would creep, kill, and disembowel unsuspecting victims. When Joshua Brightman clocked off, he became the Night City Stalker. He would lurk in the darkest corners of town, preying on unsuspecting victims before striking. He did this a whopping 32 times before he was caught. He did not discriminate. His victims ranged from young clubbers to senior citizens. And his work was not sloppy. He meticulously planned and executed every single crime, making sure to clean every last detail. Working in a store selling tech proved to be a reliable asset for Joshua. He was surrounded by cameras, optics, and countless things that he could use at his disposal. Every kill would net him more eddies, more upgrades, and most of all, more experience, creating an infinite feedback loop of despicable violence and destruction. But like all things, his crime spree came to an end. One little slip caused his entire career to fall apart, but it didn't end the way you'd think. The Stalker in some way had dropped the ball, so he sat in front of the judge, found guilty of 1 count of kidnapping and attempted murder. But luckily for him, that's all they knew. That's all they got him for. They failed to link him to any of his other crimes. The 30-odd previous murders and whatever other crime he committed at the time were not added to his rap sheet. His motives were unknown to everyone, and when asked if maybe he was suffering from cyberpsychosis, Joshua was almost insulted. He wanted everyone to know that the chrome implants played no part in his wicked ways. You see, this madman shared traits of another killer from the Cyberpunk universe, Atom Smasher. This man was twisted long before he started jamming metal into his body. So, after the gavel struck, he spent 17 years in prison. An ill-fitting sentence for such a monster. Much of the public agreed that the sentence was ridiculous and he shouldn't ever see the light of day, but the police informed everyone that by the time he was sentenced, their resources were already spread thin. Much of their time and effort was used in cases relating to international drug cartels. They claimed that they had bigger fish to fry. A young boy inhabits the streets of Southside Night City in the 2030s, trying not only to stay out of trouble, but also to survive. The area he was located at was formerly a safe and prospective middle-class area. However, it had been on a decline years prior as it slowly began to be run by criminals, causing it to fall victim to decay. Dodging near-death experiences and the surrounding criminal antics, this child did whatever he needed to survive, absorbing any information he could from Metacorp and the other sections of the net. His curiosity and ambition proved quite the strength, as he was able to overcome his lack of resources and successfully make some eddies by taking small sums from netters and other accounts. This young lad's name is Carbon, and his career as a netrunner only snowballed from here. In the year 2042, he did his first real gig, which not only made him good money, but also connections and a reputation as one of the craftiest runners around. Carbon's ability to quick hack and pick locks in some of the most secure companies had others willing to poach him and use his talents to make themselves money. Some of those included 3 advanced companies, Arasaka, Militech and Dangergal, who all took note of this young netrunner who excelled in the jobs he took. They reached out on multiple occasions in an attempt to work with him, but were burned because Carbon was a freelancer, one that refused to work for corpos. As you could expect, this put him in their scope, because if he wouldn't work for them, he was better off out of the picture. They tried to corner him and pit him against his friends, mainly through means of blackmail and extortion, but he didn't fall victim to their attempts. Although Carbon did choose to work alone, he often worked for the fixers Anika Chowdhury, Grease and Zigzag, building strong relationships with all of them. It wasn't until he was approached by Anika that he worked a job that really put him in life-threatening danger. He was used to stealing money from corpos and whoever else was unlucky enough to stand on the other side of his quick hacks, but this time, things were different. A freelancing journalist named Carol Medina needed protection from a dangerous being. This nosy press member had found boatloads of evidence for the cause of roughly 30 to 40 murders that took place between 2020 and 2030. She had found evidence that could prove that Joshua Brightman was the Night City Stalker, information that if made public would ensure that his measly 17-year sentence turned into a much, much longer one. Carol began informing 2 major news stations about her findings, but chose to play her cards close to her chest. She didn't want to just go spouting her discovery to whoever was willing to listen. She wanted to make sure that she was fairly compensated for her work. However, the only problem with running your mouth about things of a sinister nature, or better yet, sharing extremely incriminating information, is that sometimes the person who you're talking about will also hear your words. Joshua Brightman caught wind of these claims, and he was a little bit cross at old Carol. She essentially began a bidding war between the 2 media companies but needed to ensure her survival during it. So Anika assembled a group to make sure that she stayed alive. Carbon teamed up with Calvin Gibson, Crystal and Odad on a protection mission. An article announcing Joshua Brightman's release from prison had many of the followers of his trial terrified, but police told the public not to fear as the criminals already roaming Night City made the Stalker the least of their concerns. Kind of a don't fear getting bitten by a shark because you're more likely to get stabbed by a junkie on the way to the beach type of logic. Free at last, Joshua made his way back home, but not before stopping by a Ripperdoc on the way. He reportedly spent an estimated $3,000 on cybernetics alone, which was reported to the news, and when asked about it, the police stated that as long as the upgrades were legal, they couldn't do anything about it. Joshua was untouchable at this point. Freshly chromed up, he trekked all the way home, and chose to acquire black market weapons and illegal tech as he hatched a plan to silence Carol Medina. Carol communicated with the media outlets from a hidden location, while the rest of the crew bunkered down in Odad's building. Carbon's objective was to run security on the net to ensure that Carol's location remained unknown. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer. The next sequence of events is up to the referee, storyteller or game master to decide. So I've created a scenario myself that while the exact details aren't canon, the overall outcome of the story is. A light flickers. Every member of the group looks around, exhaling deeply and adjusting their postures as they ready their weapons. Electronics short circuit and the signs begin to show. Brightman is here. Carbon jacks out of the net to prepare for the assault. Everyone else dials in. It's go time. The lights go out. A flurry of bullets burst through the walls. Everyone returns fire in the direction that the bullets come from. The gunfire stops, temporarily. Pierced electrical cables send sparks flying. Everyone reloads their weapons. Sounds of empty mags hitting the floor fill the room. The sound dies down for mere seconds before the deafening choir of gunfire returns. Calvin takes rounds to the arm, dropping to the floor as he screams out in pain. The group somehow seems outgunned against the lone attacker, and every time a flurry of bullets stops, another few rounds begin pouring out from another direction. They just need to hold out for a few more minutes as Carol has almost finished transferring the evidence to the winning news station. Although at this point in time, the gang doesn't care about the public learning the truth of the Stalker's identity. They just want to make it out alive. Eventually, the gunfire stops. Silence fills the room. Everyone's ears ring, smoke spills from the barrels of their weapons, and groaning can be heard from the unlucky few that took shots to their body. Calvin takes a hit of his inhaler, healing his wound. Everyone slowly gets up and begins dusting themselves off as they scan the room. Crystal heads towards one of the many holes in the wall and tries to get a look outside. An explosion from the wall launches her across the room into a set of cabinets. They start sending shots in the direction that the explosion came from, but as Carbon tries to help Crystal up, the Stalker drops down from the ceiling and slashes at him with a knife. Luckily, Odette sends a shotgun blast towards the Psycho, pushing him out of slashing range. Odette keeps firing shots, but they only knock him around as his chrome converts the rounds into sparks and dust. Crystal manages to roll under a table and administer some first aid as the killer returns fire at the group. Brightman's suppressive fire pins them all down behind furniture and rubble. His sheer firepower and cybernetic enhancements dominates the battlefield. He bounds past Odette and tackles Calvin to the ground. As he hovers over the downed man, Carbon hacks into his optics, blinding him temporarily. He begins to fire erratically at his surroundings before Odette fires an incendiary round into his back, pushing him into a set of exposed wires and circuitry. And as the sparks fly, Crystal shoots round after round at the sprinkler system above, dousing the already crackling cables, which only zaps the Stalker more. Calvin lobs a grenade into the mix as the team dives out of the room. Smoke and ash bellows from a gaping crater in the side of the building, raining embers onto everyone nearby. Everyone lifts themselves up from the cold, hard ground, dusting off the detritus and coughing up the remnants of the battlefield from their lungs. "Is everyone okay?" Carbon asks. They nod, hobbling and limping to a safe distance. Their comms start to buzz. It's a call from Carol. "A big sum of eddies just hit my account. Everyone around town now knows the true identity of the Night City Stalker," she says before hanging up. The group awkwardly look back and forth between one another, unsure if they should inform her of the Stalker's current condition. They then dip out, collecting their rewards from Anika after the job is done. After the dust settles, the articles begin to flood the papers. "Identity of the Night City Stalker is revealed," the article states in minuscule writing tucked away on a forgotten page. But no one really cares. You see, as Joshua Brightman sat in his lonely cell for 17 years, Night City evolved. Serial killings and depraved violence became the norm for everyone in the depressing town. Nobody cared nor feared a lunatic with a passion for stalking unsuspecting victims and shredding their corpses for parts. That was just a Thursday for them. In the years following Joshua Brightman's death, the cyberpunk city saw the rise and fall of much scarier, more brutal, and at times, more interesting criminals, like Anthony Harris and the Cargo Killer. The psycho that once terrorized thousands just turned into a blip on the timeline of Night City. If you made it this far, I thank you greatly. I really enjoyed making this video and hope that you enjoyed watching it as well. I really want to make more content like this in the future, so hit that subscribe button, yada yada yada. If there's any game lore or stuff like that that you'd like to see me make a video on, please leave a comment letting me know. I've got more planned about all sorts of game franchises like Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, Halo, and just about anything else that tickles my fancy. But until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay the hell out of Night City.